Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's Career Chat. I'm Krista Harmon, a workforce development consultant with the Kent Intermediate School District, and I am so delighted to have Samantha Perry with me today. She is a cybersecurity risk and incident response analyst. Welcome, Samantha.
Thank you, Krista. Happy to be here.
We love to take our mentors back to high school age, Samantha. When you were in high school, did you think you'd even be in cybersecurity, let alone analyzing incident response? Tell us about your thinking.
Yeah, no way, Krista. Definitely not. When I was in high school, I had no idea that I was going to be working in the cybersecurity space. In fact, at the time I was very passionate about aviation and really had my goals set on being a part of that industry. I like cybersecurity because I am also touching aviation too at the same time. So Kent came full circle, but not quite the way I pictured it.
That's great. What do you remember about aviation that just lit your interest? What do you remember about it?
Oh, I remember one particular time that I realized I caught the aviation bug. My dad works for a fastener company that sells nuts and bolts and screws in the Flint area, which is pretty heavy in the automotive industry. And they needed a fastener for a car, overnight. So my dad and his company, I had to get a plane to go and fly to pick up the part to deliver it back to Flint. And I got to fly along with my dad in the middle of the night in this small plane. And I knew that that's a space that I wanted to be in.
Well, that's fantastic. I love that kind of story where those little experiences can just light something in us. So, were you pretty good in math and science? That's sometimes a stereotype of I don't know if that's a stereotype of that you have to be good in science and math to be in aviation. Tell us about your schooling.
Yeah, w when I was growing up, there definitely was those rumors that you needed to be good in science and in math to do well in the aviation industry. Do I think that those are true? No, not necessarily, but do I think that it's very important to try your hardest in those subjects and all the other subjects that you take, as a student? Yeah. I'm also a mom too, and I tell my own kids, that what you're doing today impacts what you're doing tomorrow, which will open the doors for you next week. So I think that's an important approach when it comes to schoolwork.
That's some good role model advice there, Samantha. You're nailing it right now. Um, so did you know that you wanted, so you knew aviation was it. So did you think you'd become a pilot first? Did you want to go off to college? What was the next step after high school?
Yep, I knew that I wanted to go to college. I wanted to kind of move out of the Flint area, and I figured that going to college was kind of the key that unlocked that door. And at the time, that I was deciding colleges, it seemed like there wasn't as many aviation opportunities outside of being a pilot. So that's kind of what I had my sights set on at first. I did end up getting my private pilot and my instrument rating because, again, I thought that I was going to pursue something like that. But when I started studying a career in college, I realized that there are so many other careers that weren't a pilot. Not only your maintenance technicians, but also the schedulers that book the trip, the folks that fuel the airplane, the folks that coordinate international travel and all of the regulatory paperwork that comes with it. My eyes were just opened up to that as I started my school.
So were you in an aviation type program when you started learning all that?
Yep. So I ended up choosing Western Michigan University to go to, and they have three aviation programs. I was enrolled not in their maintenance program and not in their flight science program, but the business administrative part of that is the degree that I obtained.
I love that. And so young people watching this, I love how Samantha's expanding your ideas already. If you love the aviation industry, that you can play a different role. So I love that. I love that you already gave us some of those titles, a scheduler, a coordinator, the international travel stuff. I love that. Thank you. So you get your degree, and was there anything in college? You said you did get your private pilot. How are you paying for some of that? Because I heard sometimes there's a barrier of it's too expensive to become a pilot. Tell us how you manage some of that flight time and just cost of that training. Or was
Yep,
it part of your Western program?
So Western does have a program where you can, get your financial aid and you can do your flight training through the university. That kind of makes the financial aspect of it just kind of clean and in one area. But I did my flight training a little differently. I was able to obtain grants and scholarships and getting some funding to pursue my flight degree, but I didn't do it through Western. I did it through my local airport, which ended up being a little bit cheaper in the long term. There are so many resources available to students these days because folks are promoting the aviation industry right now, and these kids these days are so good at researching some of the opportunities that are out there. It's just a matter of looking around a bit.
That's great to know. What an encouragement to young people who want to pursue this. And I imagine that there's a lot of attention because is there a shortage of pilots? Do they anticipate a shortage? What's the reality there?
Yeah, not only are they anticipating a shortage of pilots, but for every one pilot, that requires three maintenance technicians. So there's an even greater shortage in those areas. Not only that, I'll probably get into this talk a little bit later, but we also want to close the gender gap. So we don't want to discourage, males from pursuing that opportunity, but we really want to make sure that there's more female maintenance technicians, more female pilots, just really making the workforce very diverse.
Yeah, thank you for saying that because people want to know that they belong. And so having you as a role model today is wonderful for that too. So you graduated then, you decided not to become well, you did get your private rating, your private pilot rating. Um, what was that next step after college? Is there anything like, did you have an internship? Anything you'd recommend about the college and then that transition to that first role?
Yep. And this is a great question, Krista. So thanks for asking. But part of the reason that I switched away from wanting to be a pilot is because I got my first job in the industry. I was a it was the summer between my sophomore and my junior year of getting my bachelor's degree. So I think that I was maybe like 20-ish or so off the top of my head. But I got my first job at the Grand Rapids Airport working customer service at the front desk. And it was just being in and around the planes and learning how to work with my coworkers and learning how to work with customers that really changed my career trajectory. Um, when you start working in the industry, you also make connections with people that are looking out for you, giving you ideas and opportunities of things you might want to pursue. So it was really that first job of mine that opened up the many career doors that led to be my pathway.
I love that. How did you hear about that first job? Was it through Indeed.com? Was it part of the networking through your local airport? Help young people understand how you even found that first job at the airport.
Yeah, I was looking for jobs at Western Michigan University and in their College of Aviation, but there was no openings at the time. So I just decided to see, okay, what's outside of Kalamazoo and can I use, a website to search for aviation openings at the Grand Rapids Airport? And it just happened to be that there was one at the time that I searched, so it was kind of a right place, right time sort of thing.
Yeah, because what I've discovered is that aviation is like its own world and how people get like most of us aren't aware of some of the opportunities, whether it's the catering side of it, whether it's the corporate jet side of it. There's so many parts of it that it's kind of, I feel like it's a whole world of how do you access it. And again, with the internet, it's a wonderful thing. So you had your trajectory kind of changing. You just love that connection with the customers.
Yep,
So where did
that's
that go after that first job? Tell us about that experience and what started shaping for you.
Yeah. After I worked at the Grand Rapids Airport and I graduated college, so I did that for about 2 years. I wanted to get out of Michigan for a little bit. So I started working customer service for Southwest Airlines, and I wanted to move to Denver, Colorado, but some family things came up and I kind of had to move back to Michigan, which it's okay for, challenges in your career to happen. But when I came back, I started working for a corporate flight department as their scheduler. So it wasn't in the face of customers. It was a little bit more behind a desk, which was sort of a transition to me, but I just used the skills that I already had to learn a new skill. I actually did that for several years and it was pretty enjoyable, Krista.
What do you think was attractive for your resume that they would hire you as a scheduler? Because you hadn't done it before. So I guess I want young people to understand sometimes it doesn't have to be perfectly lined up and you have to have that just right degree. But what experiences do you think got you into that first corporate flight scheduler position?
Yeah. So when I was working customer service at the Grand Rapids Airport, it was at the customer service desk where all of the private jets, came in. So those were the sorts of connections that I was developing. And when I, applied for the scheduler position, I said that I was familiar with how corporate aviation worked because I was. I knew what the expectation levels were. Another thing that was important is not only is it about the hard skills, the what do you know about aviation, it's also about the soft skills that I developed, learning how to talk to people, learning how to write a business email, learning how to treat people and, respond to them the way they want to be addressed. All sorts of those things really helped ease the transition.
Yeah, I really want young people to hear that any customer service position you have while you're in high school or during college, those skills are very much valued in a variety of roles upon graduation. And you probably had to problem solve a variety of things in that kind of role.
Yes.
What would be some of the problems that you had to deal with in that customer service role?
Yeah, well, both in the customer service role and in the scheduling
Schedule.
role, you come across people who might not always be satisfied with how things went. If it's your fault or not, you might be the person that they're talking to about it. So that's where the problem solving comes in. It's thinking of creative solutions. It's remaining nice and pleasant when you don't necessarily want to be, and about just kind of doing what you can to move the situation along.
Yeah, those are important things for young people to hear about. So you end up getting this job as a scheduler, and so you're around aviation. It's still something that you're passionate about. So again, for young people to know, you can be around what you're passionate about in a variety of ways. When did you know it was time for a change? What was your next move?
So, it was during the time that I was a scheduler that I got married to my husband, and we started, building our family together. And some hours of my work had shifted, and it wasn't really working as well as it was for my personal life and my work life. So I knew that I needed a job and a company with a little bit more flexibility. I was still very drawn to the aviation space. So I was searching around the Grand Rapids area for aviation jobs and found one at GE Aviation, and it was for an executive assistant. Now, if you are scheduling private flights, you're working with some of the company's executives that need to, get from one place to another. So, had I been an executive assistant before? No, not necessarily, but did I have the transferable skills from customer service and scheduling to apply for a position like that? I most certainly did. So that is what got me to GE Aerospace. And I'll take a pause there, Krista.
Yeah, thank you. And did meeting some of those same executives, was that helpful to you in that next jump? Because I want young people to understand that networking, how valuable that is. What would you like to share about that?
So, Krista, I think that this is a very important part of my career journey that is heavily reliant upon networking. W as soon as I had got my position at GE Aerospace as the executive assistant, COVID hit. And unfortunately, we had to make some job cuts in our department. I was the most recent hire, and that's kind of the fairest way to do things is the last one hired is the first one fired. So I did unfortunately lose my job there. But the executive that I supported, my manager, had known that the cybersecurity team had completed all of their reductions in force, and then they had somebody quit. So they were too far down a person and they needed some help. My executive that I had formed a relationship with was really looking out for me. He knew that I had a newborn, and he said, "Would you be willing to use your transferable skills and learn something new in cybersecurity? They'll give you, some of the easier work because they know that you're new at it." But he helped open up that opportunity to me to something I wouldn't have necessarily considered.
I want young people to understand, and you'll have to, I know you're probably a humble person, but what was that executive observing about you that they were willing to take that risk in putting you into a position that maybe you didn't have experience, or putting their reputation on the line by referring to you? What were you demonstrating in your role, Samantha?
It was a little bit of vulnerability, but it was also a whole lot of transparency because if have a connection with a person in a professional manner, you're letting them know the things that you know that you can do well, and you're sharing with them the things that you're a little bit uncomfortable doing. And they see some potential in you. They see how well that you're communicating with them. They see that you are willing to make changes on the feedback that you're getting, and that leads to them being willing to kind of take a chance on you, and really suggest something that you would have never considered.
Yeah. And I bet you were showing up to work and had a good attitude too.
Yep, that's right. And putting my phone down, when work has to be done for sure.
Yeah, those are the things. And so again, young people, I hope you're listening to this of really you're doing that next job interview every day you go to work. Someone's looking at you for that next thing. So that's amazing that you got to move those transferable skills again into a whole new area by this administrative boss looking out for you. What was it like to go into an area that you knew, like, wow, this is a whole new thing? Help us understand some of that you didn't have it all figured out. And sometimes that happens when we get a new role.
Yep, so that's exactly right. One of the first folks that I worked with, she had known that I was newer, and I had shared some of my history, that I had grown up in aviation, but really interested in cyber. And I asked her what are some things that I can help her with if she doesn't mind sharing some easy things and showing me how to do them, once, maybe looking over my work for a second, and then, letting me try it myself. She really grew her confidence, in me. Also, she had to correct me, right, once or twice, and I had to remain open to that feedback and adjust, how she wanted me to. But she really helped me with almost everything that I know. And then probably about a year and a half into doing everyone else's work, I started opening my eyes, and things started clicking. They started making sense. I started listening to podcasts because I wanted to learn more. I started reading a little bit of news in my spare time, and that really inspired me to get my promotion. They see that you are excited about the work that you're doing, and you know what you're doing. So that's what makes the leaders now recognize me now that I'm in this space.
Yes, I want to point out that you were self-motivated. I want young people to understand no one hands this stuff to you. You're the one that was being intentional with reading and letting them know. So I just want to point that out. I'm wondering, from that graduation of college to this point, had you taken any extra training, any extra certifications, or do you want young people to know that it's that on the job training that continues to move you up?
It's definitely that on the job training, Krista, that really helps. But I will say that as soon as I started feeling confident in the cyber field, when I mentioned I was getting those podcasts and stuff, one of the things that I wanted to do is get my first cyber certification because I had already gotten my bachelor's degree in aviation. I actually got a master's degree in aviation too, although I didn't mention it. But my leaders were willing to help me out and get me better in the cyberspace by saying yes to this certification that I had said, asked about. Because that's another thing. You do have to ask for what you want sometimes.
I think that's really important to share Because I don't think sometimes young people know that's kind of how it works, but you always have to advocate for yourself and make sure people know um, what you're learning, what you're good at, what you enjoy for sure. So the certification, and I guess I want young people to know that sometimes companies will pay for this additional training. Was there a cost to it? Is that something like you said they were willing to do for you? You just had to put the time
Yes.
in?
Yes, there was a cost to it. And I did have to go through an approval, phase. I needed to tell my leaders why I thought that it was important. I needed to pitch to their leaders, to help me get the financial sponsorship for it. And then, what's difficult about being an adult is just because you're doing the training doesn't mean that your job stops. So I had to be very, thoughtful about when I'm getting my work done and when I am going to carve out some time to get my school, certification done.
Yeah. So that cyber certification, what did that bring to your skill set? What did you learn that helped you do your job and maybe has set you up for this next move?
Yeah. So that certification really helped things click into place for me. When you think about cybersecurity, there's a lot of different aspects to it. There's, the computer hardware and software. There is the internet. There are the threat actors. There's types of attacks. There are regulatory documentations. So while I was getting confident and listening to podcasts, the certification really helped give me the actual knowledge about what the industry looks like and the standards that are expected of companies.
And here you are becoming more and more knowledgeable. Was there any more steps at that job, or how did you get into that risk and incident response part? Tell us about your continued growth.
Okay, no worries. So, while I've been working in the cybersecurity space, I mentioned I've always been passionate about aviation. Um, I now work in a space where I am responding to cybersecurity incidents that happen in the aerospace industry. So if Boeing has a cybersecurity incident, I'm working with Boeing to talk about what, they've done to handle the incident. I am working with Bombardier, with Airbus, with Safran, you name it. Everybody has a cyber team and we're all working together to get, the job done. There's also a certain level of risk to it, right? So if an organization has experienced a cybersecurity incident, there might be a chance that there might be a bad person still in their environment. So we have to take some precautionary measures to not share emails or, reset passwords, some of those things. So that is the space in which I currently work. That's kind of where I'm at in a happy landing of aviation and cyber. And, it's good for my family life, which was my original goal. I'm now able to work from home and help raise my kids when I need to.
Was this the company where you work now? Was that the same company that took a risk on you when you first moved over?
Yep.
So you've totally grown with that
Yep.
company.
Yep. I've been at GE Aerospace since I was the executive assistant all the way up now into one of my senior cybersecurity roles. So I'm very thankful for the company that I work for.
Yeah, they must be delighted that they took that risk on you too. So tell us about a typical day.
Yeah. I will happily tell you. So I I when my kids are in school, I wake up in the morning and I get them off to school and then I log on at my computer at 8 a.m. I work with companies around the globe, so my mornings are very, very busy because if it's 8 a.m. here in the US, we're already into the afternoons in the UK and into the evenings in India, and folks are really trying to get work done. I will probably have nonstop meetings between 8 and 1 p.m. or so. And then I carve out time between 1 p.m. and 2 p.m. to get my necessary jobs done that, have to get done. I take a brief pause to pick up my kids when it's time for them to finish up school. And then my afternoons consist of just more work time getting set up for my meetings the next day. I am very calendar driven at this point, but that's probably what a day in my life looks like.
Which, just focuses on that personal life balance that caused you to leave one of those earlier jobs that you kept pursuing something that was going to give you what you needed with your family and work. So I want young people to know that there are jobs out there that could meet those needs if that's an important value to you. So I'd love to hear that for yourself. What is it like working in that what seems to be a fast changing environment of cybersecurity? Is that stressful knowing that there's just anything could happen any day? Like, how does that fit with your personality?
Okay, that's a very good question. So, you have to be certainly adaptable to be ready to handle whatever happens. You could anticipate it to be an easy day and something happens, and then you have to really pay attention and be intentional about what you're doing. Another portion of it is, because I work from home, it could get lonely for some. So I think that it's very important to know that I have pretty deep relationships with the people that I work with virtually. We're cameras on, we know each other, we chat about the family, and we also trust each other to kind of get work done. It's a whole different way of working, Krista, really.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful for you that you're able to find that. Without giving away trade secrets, can you give us just an example of maybe a problem that you have to solve as part of your role?
Okay, yeah, no problem. So sometimes that we have cybersecurity incidents that impact, let's say our partner organizations, because that's the space that I work with in. If there is ever something that we find out, let's say that we have to tell the government about a certain cybersecurity incident within a certain amount of time, there's a lot of different people that have to work to bring that project together, and they might be all over the globe. We have to use our problem solving, and we have to be very careful about getting all the steps done that we need to do in a very quick manner. So collaborating is probably solving one of the biggest problems, Krista. It's really knowing how to work together that gets us to do things in stressful situations.
Yeah. Are you able to leave your work at the end of the night, or does it simmer knowing that there's these things that are impacting different parts of the globe?
I am able to leave my work each night. Sometimes it might be a little bit later than I want to if I really need to get something done. But like I said, I plan my day ahead. So if I know that there is something that I don't want to think about tonight that has to get done tomorrow, I'll put it in my calendar with the time it's going to take me, with the exact steps of what I need to do. And it helps me not have to think about that, having those boundaries in my life between work and home.
Yeah. I like that you can demonstrate kind of that coping strategy of how you deal with that stress. I would love to have our time finish, and it always goes so fast, Samantha. Just a final word of wisdom to somebody who knows that they want to work somewhere in aviation, maybe something they could be doing in high school to prepare them, or maybe something that you learned along the path that you'd like to kind of find your final word of wisdom.
Well, thanks for that, Krista. I've also enjoyed our time together, and I might use this opportunity to plug an organization that I work with and I'm pretty passionate about. It's called the Women in Aviation Great Lakes chapter. And although women is in the name, it's for everybody. We host an event every September called Girls in Aviation Day. Again, it's open to everybody, but we are there to open up the cockpit to you and let you explore things and let you see what the avionics look like turned on, and create your own airport. Yeah, and even if my event isn't for you and you don't want to participate, see what Western Michigan University has or some other resource. Just get started and see what interests you, because there's more to it than being a pilot, and you'll have many different career opportunities that await you.
That's fantastic. You've been a wonderful role model today, Samantha. Thanks for sharing your time with us.
Thanks, Krista. Have a good one.